for joining us in this FAFSA walkthrough demonstration. You know, I think we have a kind of a mixture of folks joining us. Perhaps we have some Reconnect students who are looking just for tips on completing your FAFSA, whether this is your first FAFSA or you just hadn't done one in a long time. I think we also have some of our colleagues on across the state who are, again, also looking for maybe some FAFSA completion tips as well. So again, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to walk us through completing the FAFSA. Today, we're going to be using the FAFSA demo site, which allows, honestly, anyone. You don't have to be a, FAFSA expert or a financial aid administrator to have access to the FAFSA demo site. But what the FAFSA demo site allows us to do is kind of to play around with the, a mock FAFSA or a fake FAFSA. And that's what we're going to be utilizing today. But before we begin, and, no matter who has joined us today, I said I wanted actually to begin here just for a second. If this is the first time you are completing a FAFSA, you do have to have a username and a password, or I would like for you to create a username and password. And especially for my professionals that are listening to this right now, I actually have taken you first to this FSA ID site. This is fsaid.ed.gov, where a student can create their username password for FAFSA. Again, I want to take you here first just to show everyone who's listening what at least the beginning of this site looks like. That said, I now want to take us to FAFSA for a second. So fafsa.gov. Hey, our system's expired, Mary. Sorry about that. But here's fafsa.gov, where we can actually begin the application. And from a professional perspective, when Mary, myself, when any of our colleagues out in the field help students complete the FAFSA, again, the first step, what I would like for a student to do, if this is the first time you are creating or completing a FAFSA, is to create a login, that FSA ID. When you click create one, so like from right here on the screen, if you don't have your username and password, specifically the FSA ID, click that create one. When I click create one, this opens this screen up, create an account, FSA ID. Students, and also our professionals as well, all right? FAFSA shifted to the username password about 5 years ago, all right? So for those of us that may have student loans, we at that time more than likely had to create this FSA ID, because not only does the FSA ID username password help us electronically sign the FAFSA, FAFSA standing for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, but it's also is the same username password that we use to log in to look at our student loans or to help make that student loan payment online as well. That said, from a professional perspective, if you and I are helping a student create their account for the first time by, yet again, going to FAFSA and initially clicking that create one right there, notice something. This site looks different now. So when you click get started, this is what you're going to now see when creating the FSA ID from that create one hyperlink on the FAFSA site. And again, perhaps I'm speaking a little bit more just for a second to maybe some of Mary and my colleagues that work out in the field that help students with this. This is something that I honestly ran across about 2 weeks ago when helping a student or parent complete the 2021 FAFSA, where again, I instructed them initially to go to fafsa.gov, click I'm the student. The student had not created the username password, so I said, all right, well, click the create one, which opened this tab, and when I went to it, it's like, whoa, this is different. But just FYI to everyone here, to me, step one of the FAFSA, if you do not have a FAFSA username password, that's what you need to do first, is again, go to fafsa.gov, click I am the student, click that create one, and then go through the 6 or 7 screens to create your username and password for FAFSA. And that's where I would encourage you to start, because when you then return here to log in with what you've created, several of the screens will already be pre-populated with the information that FAFSA needs. So that's why I think it is advisable for a student to create their username password first. On the other hand, we encounter students all the time that, hey, yes, you in fact maybe did do a FAFSA 4 or 5 years ago, or you have student loans, and this is also the time where if you go to begin creating that username password and all of a sudden the system says, whoa, stop, you already have one created, that also gives you an idea and also gives me as a professional an idea that, hey, we may need to troubleshoot in terms of trying to I'm going to leave the site where we need to troubleshoot and, quote, click forgot username or forgot password, where we can then retrieve your username as you see illustrated here. Or, if you remember your username or your email or your mobile number, click that reset password and we can troubleshoot from here as well. Guys, and Mary, you know this as well. Unfortunately, we can't really, there's not an FSAID demo site to kind of take you through. That being said, generally speaking, the username and password, it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of you setting it up. It's about 6 or 7 screens, which will ask for your name, your social, your date of birth, your mobile number, your email address, and then it'll ask you to answer 4 challenge questions as well. Once you get through those screens associated with the username and password, and you also verify your mobile number or verify your email address, that's when you'll be good to go and you'll be ready to rock and roll with your new login that you created for FAFSA, all right? Mary, I should pause here for a second. In terms of questions and chatting, folks, if this is your first time using WebEx, you do have like a chat option, or I believe you also have a Q&A option. So during any of this, if you have questions, chat those or use the Q&A to ask those questions, because Mary, you'll jump in here, obviously, if you need to tell me to stop or re-look at something or anything like that. So just, I wanted to pause for a second to remind you of that chat feature. All right. So
absolutely. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, Mary, you're welcome. So we're into the demo site. Now it's time to rock and roll. For our professionals out there, and honestly for everyone, Mary, this is something we can actually chat out. I mean, anyone can use the FAFSA demo site. And I'm going to do to all attendees, that's the link to this demo site. Again, this is your quote-unquote playground for FAFSA. So generally speaking, I would tell those of you that are professionals in helping others with the FAFSA, I think you're going to get more benefit out of this than a student would. Students, I would just tell you to go to FAFSA.gov and begin there to actually complete the FAFSA. All right, that being said, we're going to access the demo site. We're actually going to complete today a student, a FAFSA from an independent student perspective. So, if you are, generally speaking, a student that's looking to benefit from Tennessee Reconnect, right? One of the things that you probably know is you must be considered independent per FAFSA. And that's one of those 13 questions that, questions like, are you 24 or older? Are you married? Are you a military veteran, et cetera, et cetera? If you are able to answer yes to any of those 13 questions, then you're considered independent per FAFSA. And that's the FAFSA that we're going to do today from an independent student perspective, okay? That said, here's the demo site login information that we hope, as always, works, all right? Once you have logged in, once you have said, I am the student, and you've logged in with your username and password, as you just saw me do, all of us will come to this disclaimer. this message that the government provides. Read through it. Once you've read it, you will accept it to then proceed to the next screen, which illustrates at the top, welcome, Susan, last name, Rapp. Obviously, this will reflect your name, right, per the information you've used to set up your username and password with your first name and last name. In this example, with the demo site, all these FAFSAs will actually present you with this idea of a FAFSA renewal. What we're going to do here is I'm going to click the Start Over button. And this is this FAFSA renewal. Guys, for many of you, what you might actually see on this screen is it may simply say Start the new FAFSA, and that button might be over here. But again, if you're looking to begin college this fall, the important thing to remember is you will be completing a 2021 FAFSA as you see here. And you notice the tab is bold, whereas if I click 1920, this would, in theory, give you the option of completing a 1920 FAFSA. So just again, if you're at the FAFSA site and you're thinking about enrolling this fall 2020 or spring 21, you need to make sure that this tab is highlighted and that you're going to do the 2021 FAFSA. And like I said, in most of your cases, if this is the first FAFSA you've done in many years or the first FAFSA ever, you're just going to be presented with this Start New FAFSA option. Now, if you are a student that did complete a 1920 FAFSA, I would encourage you to do a FAFSA renewal. What you're going to find with a FAFSA renewal is much of the information is pre-populated from the previous year's FAFSA that you completed, all right? So again, if you have the FAFSA renewal option, do it. However, many of you, if this is the first FAFSA you've done in a while, you'll just click Start New FAFSA to do that. All right, so Mary just did this earlier. Guys, if it does not work, we will do the old way. As Mary and I have done FAFSA demo sites through WebEx many, many times. Sometimes the demo site cooperates, sometimes it doesn't. So just bear with me for a second. So again, I think this is a good time too, while you see me re-enter using the username and password that the demo site gave me in this case. When you create your username and password for FAFSA, notice this right here, this statement that says, you know, enter your student username, email address, or mobile number. I think one of the things that I teach my team, that I would teach Mary's team as well, is for any student, when they create their username and password for FAFSA, and along with that process, they have to verify either an email address or their mobile cell phone number as well. I think what would be really, really smart, all right, is to try to teach a student that once you've, let's say, verified your email address or your cell phone number, and just use that as then the way you log in to FAFSA. Because, folks, my experience is sometimes we have so many usernames that if you don't write it down, you may have forgotten your username, but because FAFSA requires you to either verify an email or a mobile number, assuming that doesn't change much with most of our students, I would encourage you to get in a habit from a FAFSA perspective is to always log in with that mobile number or that email that you verify through the creation process. All right, so here's where we hopefully are back where we were. Let's start a new FAFSA. All right, Mary, if it's going to do that, let's do this. Let's just go to FAFSA.gov and we will just create one from scratch. So start here. So I do a lot of FAFSA, and the site just does not cooperate. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to log in as John Day and see if this works for us. 789, and then we'll say 01/25. Let's go 1990 as the date of birth. All right, accept. This is what I was trying to show you earlier, guys. So we've logged in this case, and I've had to log in using student's first name, last name, social, and the date of birth. Again, this is just my workaround because we're now at the live Fafsa site. That's just my workaround. Again, for everyone that's listening, I would say create your username and password. Always log in with username and password. But because we're having to work around, they used to saw how I worked around. But this is my illustration here. John Doe has not done FAFSA in a while, so John Doe just has that option to start a 2021 FAFSA. Once you click that, now John is going to be asked to create a save key. Folks, do not overthink this. Enter a 4-digit number that you can remember. So something as simple as 1234, 1234. So you're re-entering 1234 twice here. Again, once to create the save key, the second time re-enter that 1234. Again, all FAFSA needs is a 4-digit number. What this serves as is if you're unable to complete your FAFSA in one setting, you will be prompted for the save key in order to pick up where you last left off. Once you enter your save key, here's the instruction screen that kind of just takes you through basically the section of FAFSA. If you want to read through this, you can click different arrows to read, each section, but I, at this point in time, would just encourage you to click next and let's begin. So on the screen, you will see that the social, the first name, the last name, the date of birth is already pre-populated based on what you've entered previously to begin the FAFSA, or this will be populated from what you use to create your username and password with. Mary, thank you. Mary, you said if I am being a little choppy, I don't mind reconnecting my audio if you cool with that right quick. I said I was being a little bit choppy, which might be the case. Mary, hold on just a second, okay? So you'll keep me posted. If I need to reconnect, Mary, just let me know, all right? So everything looks good on this screen. Middle initial, you can enter your middle initial if you have one, but it's not mandatory. So you can move on to the next screen. On this screen, enter your email address and your telephone number. If you logged in with your FSA ID, this will be pre-populated. So let's say in this case, we're entering it. So we'll just go johndoe@test.com, and then our phone number is something like that. So enter that. Let's move on to the next screen. For mailing address, right? City, we'll say Nashville, Tennessee, 37243. So just basic mailing address information. Again, folks, the beauty of you logging in with your username and password, these screens will be pre-populated for you. All right. This will probably be actually the first screen that you will have to begin answering questions beyond just reviewing the answers that you see. Have you lived in Tennessee for at least 5 years? This is a yes or no question. If you're a lifelong Tennessean, then the answer is yes. However, if you've moved to Tennessee within the last 5 years, you will say no. Folks, understand, if you live in Tennessee, your state of legal residence is Tennessee. FAFSA then re-asks the question, did you become a legal resident of Tennessee before January 1st of 2015? Again, let's say you moved here in 2017. You would say no. This is where it's very important for you to enter the month and year that you moved to Tennessee. So let's say I moved here to Tennessee in June, so 06 of 2017, then that's what you need to enter. Here's the point. If you leave this particular question blank, then FAFSA will pre-populate with the day that you submitted your FAFSA, which would be 06, in this case, of 2020, that could impact eligibility for certain financial aid programs from a TSAC perspective. And just keep that in mind that, again, if you are someone that has moved to Tennessee since after January 1st of 2015, make sure you, the student, or if you're one of my colleagues, make sure you have a student to enter the month and day and year, I should say month and year, that actually moved to Tennessee. So next question, are you a citizen? So if you are, then that's yes. Let's say, however, you have a green card, okay? So if you have a green card, you would be considered eligible non-citizen, and so you would actually select no, comma, but I am an eligible non-citizen. What FAFSA then will want you to enter is your alien registration number. That will be found on your green card, and now that's actually what's called your USCIS number. So again, if you are someone who is a green card holder or someone who is working with a green card holder, then they will select the R, are you a citizen, that you are eligible non-citizen, and then also enter the USCIS number from your green card, right? So just to move on, I'm just going to select, yes, I am a U.S. citizen. Mary, if you will, jump in just for a second. I change audio, okay, if you will, just in case there's any questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mary.
Y'all, thank you so much for your patience. I've heard from a couple of you that the audio is a little choppy, so we're just going to try connecting through a different line just very quickly. If there are any questions that have popped up, I'm happy to answer them while we wait for Jason to jump back on. It should only take him about 30 seconds. If your screen has gone blank, don't be alarmed. Jason's just logging back in.
Mary, I am back.
Oh, great.
And how do I sound now?
Much better. Thank you.
All right, awesome. So, guys, I just connected a landline, and I'm back sharing my screen. So, Mary, confirm you see me Fafsa again, correct?
You sure do. Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions? Did I miss any questions I need to go back over, or are we good?
Nope, no questions yet. So you're good.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, guys, on this screen, first question, what will your high school completion status be when you begin college this fall of 20 or spring of 21? Obviously, here you see your choices. If you graduated from high school and received a diploma, that is what you will select here. Obviously, if you completed your GED years ago or what's now referred to as the high set, then you will choose that option. Or on the other hand, if you were homeschooled, you will select that you were homeschooled. Let's for this illustration, we'll say we graduate with a high school diploma. The next selection, what degree or certificate will you be working on as you begin the 2021 school year? So, assuming this is either the first time you're attending college or perhaps the first time you are returning to college from many years ago, obviously you're going to select what degree or certificate you are working on. From a Reconnect perspective, many of you may be pursuing that associate degree, so you can select either one of the associate degree programs. I think Mary and I and our respective colleagues, we would say to you, the deal breaker here for this particular question is, and I'm going to say this from like a financial aid. Obviously, if you're someone that's working on a second bachelor's degree or someone that's pursuing a master's or a doctorate, I mean, obviously if you are, you'll select that appropriately. But assuming that you are a student that's working towards your first, college degree, whether that's a certificate or diploma or associate degree, these four here, you're just going to select one of those four, right? Generally speaking, if you're you're a community college, I would just tell you to select the associate degree general ed transfer program. On the other hand, if you're attending one of our Tennessee colleges of applied technology, I would say select one of the 2 certificate diploma options. Again, from a financial aid administrator, a school perspective, these are not necessarily make or break questions, in terms of if you select this certificate diploma option, but in fact you're actually, maybe doing the option that says of at least 2 years. A TCAT's not going to really be stressed out about that as long as you select one of the 2 certificate diploma options. And also that goes from a community college perspective relative to the 2 associate degree options as well. I think professionally we would just say, hey, if you are a student looking to attend a Tennessee College of Applied Technology or a community college, select one of those 4 to move on. Next question, will you have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the 2021 school year? Just so that we're all on the same page. A bachelor's degree is what you would earn at a 4-year college like MTSU, like UT Knoxville, right? Like Austin Peay State University, generally speaking, right? There are some exceptions maybe at some of these 4-year schools, but generally speaking, the bachelor's degree is what you would earn by attending a 4-year college like the 3 that I just mentioned. Again, assuming you won't, you will just simply say no, right? That, again, you do not have a bachelor's degree. Next, what will your college grade level be? All right. So yet again, if this is your first time attending college, you're going to select never attended college first year. If you've attended before, then you will choose accordingly. Yet again, this is not necessarily a make or break question, but again, what we would say you need to avoid is, unless you are, avoid selecting the grad student options because, again, that's someone that's pursuing a master's or a doctoral degree. Again, I'd assume the majority of you will be selecting either never attended college before, or maybe, after you've worked with one of our Reconnect colleagues, perhaps we understand that this technically may be your second year, of returning to college, you will again just select what is appropriate for you in this case. I'm going to assume you've never been to college before, so we're going to select that and move on. Last question, are you interested in being considered for work study? I feel like the answer is always yes here. Work study is where you can work on a college campus and get paid out of a special pool of monies, right? You can always turn this option down. However, if you select no or don't know, generally speaking, that college is not going to offer you this option of work study where, again, is where you can work on that college campus. Let's say at Cleveland State Community College or TCAT Athens, one of our institutions where you might have this option. Again, by indicating yes, that gives you that option where a Cleveland State may offer you work study, okay? So the answer to me to that question is always yes. On our next screen, are you male or female? All right, so the difference here is this. If you select female, you'll click next and you'll move on. If you select male, which I don't know if this is new or if it's the way I did it, but somewhere in the sequence of questions, you as a male student most likely will see or be presented the have you registered with selective service. Historically, and Mary, you probably know this, and some of my colleagues out there know this as well, generally speaking, that was a question that pre-populated once you clicked next. Like this screen here would have generally said, have you registered with selective service? As you see, it didn't in this case, so we may stumble upon it here in a subsequent screen. Folks, I will tell you, the last FAFSA I did was about 2 weeks ago, but that was for a female student. Sometimes FAFSA does change things on us professionally, and they don't necessarily tell us what's changed, but just FYI, if you are a male student, heads up, more than likely you might see the selective service question where you have to answer yes or no to in terms of did you register for selective service, ideally when you reach the age of adulthood, which typically is the age of 18. In this case, on this screen, it's now asking for our driver's license number. Obviously, if you have one, then you will enter it here along with your driver's license state, which we might assume is Tennessee. But if you're someone that does not have a driver's license or a permit or a state-issued ID, which FY in the state of Tennessee, that number will be the same across all three forms of identity, right? So no matter if you have a driver's license, a permit, or a state-issued ID in Tennessee, the number across all three forms of identification will be one and the same. Therefore, you could actually use it to enter here. However, let's pretend we don't have a form of identification in that case. FAFSA does allow you to leave that screen blank and move on. Next question, are you a foster youth or were you at any time in the foster care system? Again, yes or no question. Obviously for our students that perhaps were in the foster care system at any time, then they will say yes. In this case, I'm going to say no and go to the next two questions, which actually ask about your parents. So folks, in certain states, these two questions are asked to determine if you qualify for first-generation college scholarships, meaning if you're the first in your family to attend college. Mary, I'll defer to you and your team if you y'all have maybe run into this. I am unaware of such scholarships specifically here in Tennessee. Therefore, you can skip these two questions. Now, on the other hand, you can answer them. So I'll think here, all right? So say my mom and dad. Well, my mom and dad both were, one was graduated from high school, the other earned the GED for their high school completion status. So in both cases, I'll just say that the highest that they complete is high school. But again, you can leave these two questions blank if needed, because I am unaware in the state of Tennessee any college or any government entity here in Tennessee, which generally would be TSAC, that uses this for first-generation purposes. So you can leave those two questions blank if you want to. All right, on the next screen, this is asking about high school information. So what high school, assuming you did graduate with a high school diploma, did you graduate from? So in this case, we'll say we graduated from McGavock High. Guys, sometimes less is more. So if you simply enter McGavock High, if you leave the city blank and then just select Tennessee from that list, and if you notice, I quickly tabbed and clicked T to land on Tennessee, you can also select your state from the list as well. Click search, and then you will see McGavock High appears where you can select, and then this then does the form exactly how it's supposed to see. You can also just type the information in and click next. Mary, forgive me, I guess I'm thinking a little bit of my how I do with high school students specifically, where this maybe matters a little bit more on the high school student side. But again, that's how you enter your high school information. On our next screen, this is where you're going to list the college that you want to send your FAFSA to, and or multiple colleges if you are in fact considering multiple colleges at this time. Now, you yet again can select that school by searching information. So for example, we're attending college in Tennessee, and let's say I'm interested in attending a college in Nashville. So you can actually enter those two things there and then click search. And then from the list that you see here, select the schools. Oh, well, I'm interested in Nashville State, so we can check the box there. and or let's say you're also interested in the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, which is out on White Bridge Road here in Nashville as well. You can check that as well, and you notice you've now added these two schools to your FAFSA, which simply means this. Those two schools will receive your FAFSA information, all right? Now, you can also click to add more schools if you're interested in, let's say, all right, let's go to Tennessee again. Let's say, what's that school up in Gallatin? All right, so click search. Oh, yeah, it's Vol State. So, that's a way to search for other schools in other towns or cities. So let's say we want to add Vol State to our FAFSA as well. The other thing that some colleges do is they may, after you apply for admission, they may actually apply or give you what's called their federal school code, okay, which is that number right here. So, for example, let's say you've applied to, and I want to say, Mary, forgive me just for a second, but just because I know it off the top of my head, for MTSU, this is where if MTSU has provided their school code of 003510, you can also, search for it that way and add a school like Nashville State, TCAT Nashville, TCAT Memphis, Jackson State, et cetera, this way as well. Again, forgive me, everyone. I just know MTSU school code by heart. I just want to show you that way of searching and adding colleges as well. There's multiple ways you can add colleges to your FAFSA. But once you're done, right, whether that's one college you want to add or up to a few, FY you can add up to 10, but I think any of us would say just add the one or two schools that you are considering or that you for sure know you're attending. Once you add those, click Next, which will bring you to the screen, which will ask, select your housing plans. Assuming that you're going to live at home or within your apartment, perhaps even if you are someone that might be living in the household with your parent as well, select the appropriate housing plan in this case. Not, again, a make or break question, but you do have to select something. So I'm going to assume that we have our own house or apartment, so I'm just going to say we live off campus in these three, at these three schools. So again, Nashville State, TCAT, and Vol State in these examples. I just selected off campus. This now brings us to our dependency questions. And as I said earlier, your dependency questions, this is what will determine your independency on the FAFSA. Guys, based on age alone, the fact that I indicated earlier that I was born, I believe, in 1990 is what I entered. That makes me over the age of 24. So by age alone, I'm already independent, which simply means this. I will not need to provide my mom and or dad's information, okay? However, there are other dependency questions. For example, what is your marital status? Well, again, if you are married, that will also make you independent. And so by you indicating that you're married, you will need to provide FAFSA when you in fact married, or if you happen to have been married once and now are married for a second time or whatever, enter the month and year the date that you most recently got married, okay? So that's one option here. In this case, I'm going to say, listen, I'm single and going to move on. Now, other dependency questions, right, that you will be posed despite even your age is, do you have any children, right? So let's say, yeah, I do have children who I will be providing more than half their support between these dates, July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. So I hit yes there. Now, this question, do you have dependents that you're providing more than half your support to? So, for example, if you have a cousin, a niece, a nephew, heck, even a grandchild that you might be raising, this is where you would also say yes or no to that question as well. In this case, I do have children that I'm providing more than half their support, but let's say I don't have any additional dependents, meaning cousins, nephews, nieces, or even grandchildren, so I'll answer no to that question. On this next screen, this will then ask, all right, well, numbers-wise, who's in your household? So FAFSA got you. The fact that I indicated that I am single, it said 0 for my spouse. If you say that you were married, you would see a 1 pre-populated there. Now, I did indicate that I did have children, that I am providing more than half their support, right? So in that case, let's say I have a child, okay, who lives with me. I'm providing a roof over their head. That means I get to count that child on the FAFSA. So I will just select 1. Obviously, if you have 2, if you have 3, you will enter the number accordingly there. So basic math here, right? If it's me and that 1 child, that means there's 2 people in the household. FAFSA does the math for you. So as an independent student, right, the fact that I have a child, FAFSA now ask how many people in your household as reported above. So of the 2 will be in college in 2021. So if I'm in college, that means I at least get to enter 1 there. However, if you're someone that does also have a child that lives with you who will also be in college, folks, you can count 2 in that example. So in other words, if me and my son or daughter will both be in college this fall or this spring, I can actually enter the number 2 as the number of people in my household who will be in college. Now, interestingly, for any of your students who also have done the FAFSA, so if you're 17, 18, 19-year-olds done the FAFSA out there, all right, just FYI, they're more than likely dependent, which means they're going to need mom and dad's information, right? This might be FAFSA 2.0 here. Mary, forgive me. But just FYI, folks, you know, if you're 17, 18-year-olds doing the FAFSA, they can't count that you are in college with them at the same time. Only you as that independent student can count that you're in college along with them, if that makes sense. And if we need to go back over that after the fact, we can. But I did want to throw that out there specifically to any of my colleagues that are helping multiple folks with the within a household doing the FAFSA, right? That can get a little confusing, but just FYI, I just want to share that with you right quick. So FAFSA now says, congrats, you're an independent student. Based on this, we only need your information. However, you are asked, do you want to provide information about your parents? Well, you don't have to. You don't need to. So I would say keep it at no and then click next. And now FAFSA will skip the parent demographic and parent financial situation or sections and jump straight to your student financials. Again, folks, if you are married, then obviously this will be information about you and your spouse. The fact that I indicated I am single, this is just going to be information about me in terms of my financials. So for 2018, have you completed your IRS income tax return? Okay. So if you are someone who worked in 2018 and based on the amount of income you earned, you were required by the IRS to file taxes. I'm going to assume you've already filed those taxes, so you'll select already completed, and then you will have completed an IRS 1040. And then again, depending on your tax filing status, right? In my case, or when I say my case, based on this example, right, I am single from a marriage perspective. However, I did have a child. So generally speaking, I would have filed head of household. Now, if this is the way you have filed, then I'm going to encourage you to, quote, link to the IRS, which will ask for your username and password again from a FAFSA perspective. Once you enter that, this will then take you to the IRS site. This is the best way to enter your tax information from your tax, for all these tax questions, all right? It's the simplest way. I'm going to encourage you to do it. Most of our students are able to use data retrieval who file taxes. There's always exceptions to the rule, but again, I'm going to always encourage you to first and foremost try to link to the IRS and link all your tax information. Unfortunately, I can't show you that right here because I've not logged in, right, with a username and password, nor would I have been able to do this if we were even at the demo site, okay? But that said, basically what you will experience is you'll be taken to this IRS site that will simply ask, it'll display your name, and it'll simply ask for you to verify the mailing address as it appears on your 2018 tax form. So folks, that's where I would say bring out your 2018 tax form and enter the mailing address, the city, the state, and the zip code as it appears exactly on that 1040 from 2018, because that's how the IRS knows what information you're looking for, or that's their one additional step to confirm that John Doe, is authorizing us to share John Doe's information, who lived at 1234 Main Street, Nashville, Tennessee in 2018. That authorizes IRS to share that information with FAFSA, okay? So that's really the only additional step that you're not seeing in this live demo from the IRS site. It'll just ask you for that information, and then it'll ask, do we have permission to share this with FAFSA? The answer is please share, okay? Now, I'm going to skip IRS today just to kind of go through these tax questions. That said, just want to make this clear. If you are someone listening who did not file taxes in 2018 because you were unemployed, or perhaps you were disabled, and however you did not have any income earned from work other than disability, well, you didn't have to file taxes. So just understand, if you say not going to file, that you did not file in 2018, and if you selected not going to file, that's perfectly okay, right, if you did not work or if you only received, let's say, disability in 2018. It is totally okay for you to have also answered that tax question that way as well on that previous screen. That said, for those of us who did file, it will say, if you use data retrieval, all this will be populated for you. However, if for some reason you have to manually enter this information, just follow the instruction. What was your adjusted gross income for 2018? Please enter the amount found on the IRS form 1040 line 7. So folks, if you're unable to use data retrieval, this is where we just need your tax documents, and you just simply look at them and look at line 7. If line 7 indicates that you earned $20,000 in 2018, then that's what you will enter and you will move on. Next screen. So what was your, how much did you earn from work in 2018? Again, look at the following lines. Now, this is where FAFSA can kind of get complicated a little bit. Generally speaking, for most people, I'm highlighting what you need to look at, which is look at line 1. The exception to this would be, obviously, I'm going to say this. If you are married, right, and you're having to report you and your spouse's information, then in your case, I'm generally going to encourage you to look at your W-2 forms. So look at your W-2 form, line 1, and then look at your spouse's W-2 on his or her line 1 and enter accordingly, because you would have two separate questions here about your income earned from work versus the spouse's income earned from work. Again, we're single in this case, so that's why it's only asking just for, quote, my income earned from work. Generally speaking, that's going to be the same as the AGI. But understand, folks, if it's you and your spouse, then basically what you and your spouse each made based on your W-2, right, is what you would report for two separate questions. All right, now, next question. You indicated that you filed a 1040. Did you file a Schedule 1? All right. So Schedule 1 typically, I'll tell you this, short answer is this. In your tax documents, if you're going through the paperwork, if you don't see a Schedule 1, you didn't file one, right? So you can answer no and move on. Generally, people that filed Schedule 1 are people that are reporting farm income, or they are self-employed and are reporting income from being self-employed. Okay, so just FYI in terms of what a Schedule 1 means. Mary, like you and I, working for quote unquote the state of Tennessee, like I'll say, I didn't file a Schedule 1, right? So again, just to give you an idea from a tax perspective, typically people that file Schedule 1s are reporting either farm income or they are reporting income from being self-employed, right? So if that doesn't apply to you, then you'll select no and move on. However, if you did file a Schedule 1, you'll say yes and move on. Now, this is where Fafsa uses what's called skip logic. Depending on the amount of income you earned, you might be presenting with the question you see here. Do you want to skip the remaining questions, right? Based on the amount of income I earned in 2018, which I report as $20,000, this allows me to skip certain questions on the Fafsa. So again, my colleagues, to my students listening to this, if Fafsa ever asks you to skip questions, yes, skip questions, because this allows you, you qualify for a simplified means calculation, which simply means this: you may qualify for some financial aid, right, from the federal government, for example, based upon, your income level, and therefore FAFSA doesn't need to know more about your income information. So again, if you are ever presented with do you want to skip questions? Yes, you do. Just for illustration purposes, I'm going to select no. And these are some of the additional questions that you're going to be asked, right, if you do not get that option to skip questions. It'll ask about your income tax for 2018. Again, you'll look at specifically the lines that on the forms that are highlighted here, line 13 from the 1040, and then if you filed Schedule 2 minus line 46. I will tell you folks, 99% of the FAFSAs I did in the past year, I've only seen like less than 1% file a Schedule 2. I'll be honest, Schedule 2, from what I understand from a research perspective, is someone who has claimed an alternative, Mary, this is me pausing, an alternative, it's like a heat tax or like an energy savings tax. Bottom line is, I've only seen less than 1% of the FAFSAs I've done, which honestly means one FAFSA in the last year that has actually had a Schedule 2 for me to look at. Most of you, for this income tax question, if you see it, will simply need to look at the 1040 line 13 and answer whatever you see. If it's blank, you'll just enter 0 and you'll move on. And then FAFSA will present other questions to you, which again, the assumption is that all of these are zeros, but again, you can go through each one and again, look at the tax form accordingly if you need to, and update with any dollar amount that you need to. Folks, generally speaking, a lot of these questions will not apply. That's why FAFSA pre-populates all these answers as 0, because the majority of students across the United States, again, won't have any answers to give to these questions here. That's why the assumption is 0. Again, read through them, and if any of them apply, then obviously answer accordingly. Same thing on this screen as well. In this case, this is a child support paid question. This is where sometimes we do have our Reconnect students that will perhaps answer this because they perhaps have paid child support due to a divorce or separation. In that case, if this applies to you, you will answer accordingly and move on. The other two questions, again, generally do not apply. The next screen will be the biggest question, I think, for this one is about child support received. I think, again, this is where I do have some of my students that will have to answer this question. Again, thinking about from an adult perspective where perhaps you've received child support in 2018, then again, if you did, you will enter the amount of child support received for any and all children in the household, all right? The rest of these questions, my experience, generally do not apply, but by all means, take your time and read through each of them and move on. And then finally, just showing you all the potential questions of this FAFSA. This one again asks, do you want to skip questions about your assets? Again, I'm eligible to do that. If you say no, then, or if you are unable to skip, then these are the 3 questions that you're going to be asked. As of today, what is your total balance of cash, checking, and savings? So, you know, my advice to this question to any family doing the FAFSA, any student to do the FAFSA is, folks, listen, if you got paid today, but tomorrow, you know, what you got paid today, tomorrow's going out to pay bills, generally speaking, I say put your average balance of your checking savings accounts, all right? So if on average, you know, you keep $500 in checking and savings account at all times, then that's your answer, right? If you're someone that, Jason, I'm a day-by-day person, so one day it could be $500, next day it could be 0. I'm okay with you putting 0 as well. The point there is Mary, like I think you and I both have been trained, and I know I train others this way, is, again, you know, if you have to answer these questions in this case, put that average daily balance as opposed to what today's balance is. Again, just knowing that if I'm paid today, I know where my money is tomorrow, right? So put that average balance. And then the other 2 questions are about your net worth of investments, meaning, for example, if you have money market accounts, CDs, stocks, bonds, blah, 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 that's what it's looking for there. And then finally, as of today, what is net worth of current balances, current business or investment farms? Folks, most of my students don't have to answer that question, and we'll put 0 for that. Again, typically that does not apply to the families that I work with. Again, professionally, some of us can talk about that one if we need to. In this case, I'm just going to leave all these or enter 0 for all these and move on, which we're finally at the end of the FAFSA. Are you prepared? The answer is no. It is rare. This is if you pay someone to do the FAFSA, this is where they would actually say yes, and they would have to enter their Social Security number that they charge you to do the FAFSA. Again, you are not a preparer. You did this by yourself, so the answer is no, and you move on. And then on the next screen, this is where you will review all your information. And I don't mean to quickly scroll down all the way, but this is, again, where you will enter all your information. You'll see a lot of the questions can and are skipped based on certain ways you answer certain questions. But once you've reviewed everything, and if you're content, now it's time to electronically sign the FAFSA. First, you simply read through the information here, right, that basically says, to the best of your knowledge, the information I provided is accurate, okay? So assuming it is, you agree, you click Next. This is where you will enter your username and password. If you've already entered it, you'll simply be given this Sign This FAFSA option. You'll click that button. Once you click that button down here, you'll have the Submit My FAFSA button, and then boom, your FAFSA will finally be done and submitted, and you'll be good to go from there. So, Mary, as you might imagine and expect of me, I have gone exactly 60 minutes, as I typically do when going through a FAFSA scenario. Did we have any questions that we need to cover? Mary, are you there? Oh, it won't unmute. So Mary, hold on a second. I'm going to hit stop sharing. And I'm going to make you presenter, Mary. There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that,
hey.
Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple questions come in. One was if I'm going to, for example, Motlow campus or Motlow Community College, but in Smyrna, what do I put on my FAFSA for those branch campuses?
That's a great question. Mary, if I may, can you make me presenter again just to show that right quick?
Absolutely.
and I don't think it will affect you anyways. And I think Jonathan maybe sent an email or a question in the Q&A. You may see that. But all right, I'm going to go back to Google Chrome. So I think the easiest way to explain about Motlow, which is a great question. Back to the school selection tab. Now, when you hit school selection, you'll first go to the high school page, and then you'll go to your college screen. So let's say we want to add Motlow. I think in this case, what I would do is this. I would select Tennessee as a state, and then for school name, just simply type Motlow and click search. Because, folks, understand, these community colleges or TCATs that there's a main campus with several satellites, listen, you want to put the main campus, and the main campus is the only thing that you can put. However, like, some people don't actually know that the main campus of Motlow is actually in Tullahoma. So actually the best thing maybe for me to teach you is in that case is, again, let's do it one more time. So when it's asked about state, select Tennessee, but leave city blank and just type Motlow, click search, and then boom, Motlow comes up, and now we've added it to the FAFSA. And so that's what I would do, because if you try to type in Motlow and then or Smyrna as a city, nothing will come up, because again, in FAFSA's mind, Motlow State's only in Tullahoma. So that's how, Mary, I would teach any student, any professional to search for colleges that way, like a Motlow State. I think it might be just best to, to go the state as Tennessee and just put the partial school name. Again, how about we do like Cleveland as another example, and then boom, that brings up Cleveland State. And just ignore and leave the city blank. Sometimes less is more in these examples.
Great, thank you, Jason. Give it one more minute, but I don't see any other questions coming in. There was one that I answered just offline.
So the Jonathan question, if you, oh wait, or did you answer that already?
I did, but I think it bears repeating. We have a couple other questions that have come in, but I think it does bear repeating for what do you use the demo site for, and which credentials do you use, and then which credentials do you use for the FAFSA.gov website?
Yeah. So guys, the demo site, I would say, and forgive me if I made that, if I overcomplicated that. I think professionally, and I'm talking about like if you are, one of our colleagues, right, with Mary and I think that's like you, if you want to play around with FAFSA, use the demo site. But if you are actually a student looking to go to college, go to the live site, meaning go to FAFSA.gov. And obviously try your username and password there. For some reason it's not working, that's where I would go back and like I said, at the let's go back here, and Jonathan specifically. So here's FAFSA.gov. If you go to log in, if you're having trouble resetting your username or password for FAFSA, then at this login screen where you click on the student, I would tell you to click forgot username and forgot password. Jonathan, this is just my experience. If you continue having trouble, then maybe step 2 would be, well, actually try to create a new one. See if it allows you, all right? If for some reason it doesn't, then step 3 would be, and Mary, I could, I'll type this in. As always, you can always call FAFSA at its 1-800 number, which is the 1-800-433-3243. That is the FAFSA hotline where you actually can speak with someone at Federal Student Aid, that if you have an issue, and we see them all the time, folks, where maybe you created this 5 years ago and that email account's no longer active, or that cell phone was like 3 cell phone numbers ago, then sometimes you have to call FAFSA and work with one of their representatives to quote, fix your issue, and hopefully they can provide assistance if you need help.
Great, thank you, Jason. We've had one more question come in so far. And it's from a student who already filled out their FAFSA, which is awesome. They're now going through a divorce and wondering what do they do about the information, because the original information was the student and their husband.
So in that case, student, if you will, don't worry about touching or doing anything with FAFSA at this point in time. What we need to advise you is go speak with your prospective college's financial aid office, right? So if you're looking, let's use Motlow as an example. If you're looking to attend Motlow State this fall, and since you submitted your FAFSA, a divorce has happened, then go speak with financial aid at Motlow State. Let them know about your situation. And folks, this applies across the board. You know, Mary, you know, I've obviously have had meetings professionally with our colleagues and with our respective teams. You know, as it relates to COVID-19, you know, there's been a lot of people impacted by that. And FAFSA's guidance that you actually can see on FAFSA's site is if something's happened to you, whether it's COVID-19 related, whether it's personally in terms of you've now gone through a divorce or you know, whatever, if your situation has changed and you've already submitted your FAFSA, don't worry about going back and correcting your FAFSA. Not yet. Go talk to that college and that financial aid office at the college about your situation, and just listen to them and follow their directive. Listen, folks. Colleges are given autonomy to do certain things, which when I use the term autonomy, what that means is they can do things, but they can also choose not to do things, right? So if you're looking to go to college and they say, you know what, thank you for sharing this information. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do for you at the time. This is something that will be reflected on the 21-22 FAFSA. Folks, if that's their decision, that's their decision, right? That's not something that you know, unfortunately, I can necessarily help you with, but that's why I would encourage you to just talk with your college and the financial aid office, and see if that's something that they can work with you. And if something needs to be corrected on the FAFSA, you take the college's lead after you speak with them. You don't need to do anything until you speak with the college, though. Mary, would you concur with that?
I would, absolutely. Hey, Jason, I think that's all the questions that we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If anyone has any additional questions for Jason, you would have gotten an email from me. My name is Mary Lappin, and my email address is mary.lappin, Laphen, @tn.gov. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I can connect you with Jason, or you can connect with Jason directly at jason.cseay@tn.gov.
Yeah, and guys, I just chatted that, Mary, thank you. I just chatted that out to everyone as well. So those of you that have the ability to look at the chat feature, again, jason.seay@tn.gov is my email, and then my number is 615-319-1740. So again, whatever's easiest with you, and obviously, you know, Mary's got the Reconnect team there as well that can assist you, but we're here for all of you guys. So.
You know, Jason, we just had one more question come in, just to finish this off, was a student asked if they need to do anything else to qualify for the Tennessee Reconnect program.
So, Mary, I think, and you definitely jump in here as well. I mean, I think the only other thing that you definitely need to do, if you haven't already, and Mary, if you go to reconnect.gov, this may be where you want to take over for a second. You definitely have to apply for the grant, which if you go to tnreconnect.gov, you can click there, which will take you eventually to the TSAC student portal site, right, Mary?
Well, if you click on you were good. If you click right there and you scroll down to that blue link in step 1.
Boom. Yep, right there.
And then right under there, it says to create your TSAC login with that link. There you go.
Right there.
Yep. And then you can create that login and then go through.
Yeah. So definitely need to do that from a Reconnect perspective if you haven't already. I mean, FAFSA, I would say, is one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle, but obviously you've also got to, you should be encouraged to also complete the application as well. And again, like I said, tnreconnect.gov, up the red bar, click here to apply for the grant, and then where it says step 1, that's that link right there, will open this site for you to first create the account, and then once you create your account, this is very similar, right, Mary, to FAFSA. Once you create your account, then you have to log in, right, and find the Reconnect application to actually complete.
That is correct. And those are the steps to apply for the Reconnect grant. The first step is to fill out the FAFSA. The second is to fill out the Reconnect application, which Jason is walking us through right now, showing you how to get there. And then the next step is to apply to your college.
Yep. So guys, once you're logged in the portal account, and Mary, forgive me, I know I did that really fast, right? But once you've logged in, you'll click apply, and then this will show you all of our financial aid programs that have separate applications beyond FAFSA, and so if I am someone that's looking to complete the Reconnect application for fall 20, spring 21, and I guess summer 21 as well, then this is the one you'll want to complete and to follow the steps from here to complete it. But yeah, that's how you, that's where you find that and what you need to do. Just follow the steps. Once you click on it, just follow the screens and get all the information created. So, awesome.
Thank you. And just one last note, and while you're on this website, Jason, if you do have any questions about filling out your Tennessee Reconnect grant application or anything about the Tennessee Reconnect process, please feel free to click on that Talk to a Navigator tab, and we can connect you with a navigator across the state. This is a free service, and we have folks all across the state who work with our adult learners to and through the college going process. So we'll work with you through the application process, but also through enrollment, finding books, figuring out childcare if that's something. To be clear, we don't have any additional funding, but we do have experts in the field who know about all the local resources and would be more than happy to connect you with them.
Yeah.
Jason is walking you through our handy intake form. You fill that out, and that connects you with someone within 24 hours.
Yeah, and that's pretty self-explanatory there. So once you get everything that has a red asterisk and answer those questions, just click submit. And Mary, to your point, I'll connect you to one of our colleagues. So that's a great resource, guys. Great resource.
Okay, I think those are all of the questions. So thank you again so much, Jason. We really appreciate your time and walking us through the FAFSA today, and also a bonus of walking us through the Tennessee Reconnect application. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, you all, thank you so much for joining us today. Like we said, Jason's contact information is in the chat if you have any questions. And also the tnreconnect.gov website has all of our contact information as well as getting in touch with the navigator. Thank you and have a great day.